Hello everyone, and welcome to Classic Gaming Today, where we take a look at the gaming experiences of the past through the eyes of the present. I am your host, Tony, and today we're going to look at another Sounds of the Classics episode. This one is our second listener grab bag Sounds of the Classics. We're going to talk all about that in just a couple minutes, but first, as is usual, just a little bit of housekeeping up front. As always, I'm excited to be here. I hope all of you are as well. If you'd like to reach out, let me know how I'm doing, provide feedback, comments, suggestions, or just talk about classic games and technology in general. I would love to hear from you, and there are a few ways you can reach out. I have an X account with the handle @ClassicGamingT. I have an email address, which is classicgamingtoday@gmail.com, and we have our Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Discord is the best way to get in touch with me and the rest of the community around this podcast. We have a ton of fun out on Discord. We do weekly and monthly gaming challenges, prizes, rewards, discussions. It is all out there. I highly encourage you all to check it out. I also highly encourage you to check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/ClassicGamingToday. If you want even more Classic Gaming Today goodness, including a Patreon exclusive bi-weekly podcast expansion pack, patreon.com/ClassicGamingToday is where it's at. I'd also like to give a shout out to our Pantheon patrons. They are ISO, Rich Senewal, David Morton, Sam Twardowski, Sean Oliver, and Maximus Marshall, Steve Novoselic, Wendell Jr., Chris Snowden, The Bay 101, Toucan Sam, Christopher Fose, Grayor, Snatch Bandicoot, NYC Lewis W., Martin Steiner, Melody Octavia, James Nunn, Yuzu Soda, and Marek. Thanks to our patrons for supporting the show, and thank you all for supporting the show. Whether you contribute monetarily or simply listen on a regular basis, I truly do appreciate all of the support. Before we start going into our listener grab bag episode, I thought it'd be a good idea to let everybody know why we're doing another Sounds of the Classics with all of your selections included. And the simple reason is because I wanted to take the week off. I'm joking. Of course I'm joking, because I love doing this and I love seeing all of the different suggestions and recommendations and song choices that you all came forward with. Just to give everybody a little bit of background about Sounds of the Classics, because we don't always talk about the background for all of these episodes. When we originally started doing Sounds of the Classics, my thought was, well, first of all, I love video game music. I have loved video game music my entire life. Every single kind of video game music, I can see something to appreciate. Whether you're talking about the bleeps and bloops of early arcade titles, all the way through to the MIDI synthesis of the late 80s, early 90s, through to today with all of the orchestral arranged soundtracks, or even sometimes chiptunes that harken back to the days of retro gaming. No matter what it is, I love video game music. And when I originally thought up of our Sounds of the Classics format, which happened at this point 2 or 3 years ago or so, I think, when I first thought up of the format, I wanted a way to celebrate the music that I enjoy from video games, but not just focus on the music, because all of our standard episodes include musical interludes from the game that we're covering as part of the episode, because, like I said, I love video game music. But I wanted a way to celebrate some of the songs and games that meant something to me beyond just the fact that the music itself was good. So every time we've had a Sounds of the Classics episode, other than our episode on Final Fantasy X, which was a little bit of a different format, where we actually went deep into Final Fantasy X's story. But every other Sounds of the Classics episode has been focused on something or songs and games that have meant something to me. They might be memories from my childhood, or they might have happened. I might have listened to them for the first time or played those games for the first time during a very specific period of my life, and they've etched a permanent memory in my brain. That's the whole concept behind Sounds of the Classics. And I recognize that I am not the only one that feels this way about certain games or music from games. I recognize that all of you probably have those same kind of songs, those same kind of experiences that mean something to you, that bring you back to your youth or to some other period of time in your life and truly means something to you. That is really the goal behind all of these Sounds of the Classics episodes, but it's really the goal behind our listener grab bag episodes, because these are songs not for me, these are not songs that mean something to me. These are songs that mean something to all of you. And I love hearing all of your different stories behind why you've chosen the songs that you have or whatever else. So I'm not going to spend any more time me talking. I'm going to step away from the microphone. This episode is really created by all of you, and I appreciate everybody's submissions and truly just appreciate everybody being a part of this community. Anyway, with that out of the way, we're going to get into our first song, which is... That song is Passing Breeze from the MS-DOS version of Outrun and was submitted by Film Kid, who writes, "Along with Super Mario Bros., Outrun is the game that started my video game journey. At age 6 to 7, I would beg my dad to use his Tandy, which was his bookkeeping station for his small cleaning business, to play games, and Outrun was one of the games, along with Police Quest 1 and Prince of Persia, he had on floppy disk. I would pop Outrun in and I would sit there for hours cruising around in that red drop top listening to Passing Breeze. It just sets the mood right for the journey in front of the old CRT screen. As much as I love the MS-DOS version of the song, I absolutely love the 8-bit big band cover of the song as well." Thank you, Film Kid, for your submission. Outrun is one of those games that I have a little bit of experience with. I did play it in the arcades back when I was younger, but I never played any home version of the game. Although I do appreciate the style of racing game that Outrun was, where you're in your car and it's kind of a behind the car viewpoint and you're driving into the screen, so to speak. So not true 3D graphics, but I really enjoy that style of racing experience. I played a ton of those kind of games. Outrun, I played in the arcade, but I also played games like, I think it was Top Gear on the Super Nintendo, Cruisin' USA, which was an N64 and arcade release later on. Even some of the other Sega arcade games like Daytona USA could be played from a similar kind of viewpoint. Now, of course, Daytona USA in particular did actually use 3D graphics. It wasn't just a cool two-dimensional trick. But Outrun was a really cool game. I don't have any particularly fun personal memories of playing Outrun, unfortunately, but I do recognize that it was a good game. And just listening to Passing Breeze, even without having a ton of knowledge about the game, you can immediately sense exactly what you're getting into. When I listened to Passing Breeze, I immediately thought, oh, this has got to be a stage where you're driving through, there's like a beach and probably some palm trees and stuff like that. And lo and behold, that's exactly when the song plays, at least in the arcade version of the game. I don't have any experience with the MS-DOS version, so I can't confirm that with certainty. But on the arcade version of the game, Passing Breeze, you will immediately know what to expect as you hear the opening notes and as the song progresses. Regardless, thank you, Film Kid, for your submission. We're going to move on to our next entry on the list, which is... That was the introduction from Space Quest 3 and was submitted by Left-Handed Guitarist, who writes, I loved the way this starts with the classic Space Quest theme tune and then morphs into a new, very upbeat piece that has its own melody, but still feels like it belongs to the original theme, despite the addition of drums and bass to turn it into more of a pop rock song. I would have initially grown up with hearing a much simpler version of this rendered through the bleeps of the PC speaker, but the fuller Sound Blaster version is what I remember most clearly. Thank you, Left-Handed Guitarist, for your submission. I've got a confession to make. Space Quest. Despite the fact that I am a huge point-and-click adventure gamer, and I love the point-and-click adventure game genre. Actually, I love the entire adventure game genre, but I really love point-and-click adventure games. Space Quest is one of those series that I have not actually played. And I know the earlier Space Quest games actually were not point-and-click adventure games, but were more of the traditional parser kind of inputs that early Sierra Online adventures were known for. So I'm not saying that, it's only point-and-click kind of experiences, but Space Quest as a series, I have always been told. I have been told that I need to play Space Quest. Everything you read talks about how Space Quest is funny and engaging and has some really cool scenarios. I've also heard that it has some really tricky dead-end situations just across the series, where if you miss something on like the first screen of the game, you could potentially not be able to finish the game because the screen gets locked off and then you can't return. That was just traditional Sierra design back then with their adventure titles. But Space Quest as a series, people keep telling me, you've got to play it. You've got to play it. You've got to play it. And I keep saying, I will. I absolutely will. I want to play it. Actually, this is probably, in the adventure game space, this is probably the series that I've gotten the most flack for over the years for not actually playing. I've played a ton of other Sierra adventures. I've played the Gabriel Knight series, the Police Quest series, Leisure Suit Larry series. I've played other offshoots like Phantasmagoria 2. Oh, geez, what else? There's like so many. I've played the Dr. Brain series, which is kind of a puzzle point-and-click adventure sort of experience. I have played a ton of Sierra games. Oh, did I say King's Quest? If I didn't, King's Quest. I've played a ton of these games, and I just never touched Space Quest, and I don't know why. Because the premise is intriguing to me. You play as a space janitor that gets into all sorts of weird situations. That sounds funny. I would definitely play that game. So what's wrong with me? Why haven't I played Space Quest? I don't know, but I'm going to have to rectify that in the near future. I know there are tons of fans out there for the Space Quest series. I definitely want to eventually play it. Maybe we'll have a future episode on one of the Space Quests. If anybody wants to hear that, definitely let me know. I know I've gotten some suggestions in the past, but if others are out there, they're like, yeah, you got to play Space Quest. Let me know about that because I'm definitely interested. Putting that aside, though, thank you, Left-Handed Guitarist, for your submission. We're going to move on to our next entry on our list, which is That was Dire Docks from Super Mario 64, submitted by Kevin, who writes, I don't think there's a single game that surprised me as much as Super Mario 64. I had heard about the shift to 3D and how Super Mario 64 was this ridiculously huge adventure with endless content to explore, but I honestly didn't comprehend exactly what that meant until I sat down to actually play the game, after which my gaming life was changed forever. My young mind couldn't fathom what I was experiencing with a gigantic open world that felt unlike any prior Super Mario title to date, coupled with an evocative soundtrack that represents some of Koji Kondo's best work. My personal favorite track is the theme to Dire Dire Docks, a contemplative, laid-back track that is just as good, if not better, than other water-themed tracks from other games, like the original Super Mario Bros. And Donkey Kong Country's aquatic ambiance. The whole game is filled with amazing music, but Dire Dire Docks is definitely the one that stands above the rest. I can't wait for your eventual episode on the game. I know it has to be coming at some point, right? Thank you, Kevin, for your submission. Yes, Super Mario 64 is on my list. I know that there are certain games, there are certain iconic titles or iconic releases in certain series and franchises that you would assume would automatically get an episode of the podcast. Super Mario 64 being one of the most, I guess important is the best way to put it, but one of the most influential releases in all of gaming history. That was the game. Super Mario 64 was the game that showed everybody that you could do 3D in a platforming kind of experience. Around then, and I can't stress this enough because I lived through it. Just like Kevin, I lived through this experience. When Super Mario 64 came out, playing the game, you were shocked. It was amazing. You had never experienced anything like this before. Legitimately, Super Mario 64 was the kind of game that changes the course and trajectory of an entire industry forever. That is how important Super Mario 64 is and was and continues to be in video game history. I personally love Super Mario 64. I know there are some of us out on Discord who don't think about Super Mario 64 with quite the same level of reverence. I get it, and everybody is free to have their own opinions, certainly. I just have to tell you that those opinions are wrong. I'm sorry, wait, no, I take that back. I'm actually just joking. Of course, everybody can have their own opinions about anything, but Super Mario 64, at least in my opinion, is an incredibly important release in video game history. It is one of those titles that truly did set the standard for an entire industry, a new genre effectively had its standards created by Super Mario 64. And I do have to say, the music in the game, the music in Super Mario 64, all of it, absolutely outstanding. We could probably have a Sounds of the Classics episode focused just on the music from Super Mario 64. That's how good the music is. Dire Dire Docks is certainly one of those tracks that I've appreciated over the years as well. It just sounds right. And when you're playing the game and the music is playing in the background, it sounds even more right. It's just a perfect melding of music and gameplay, and the overall experience is just, it's awesome to feel. Super Mario 64, it will get an episode. I can almost guarantee it will get an episode because I want to play it again. And interestingly, as I was playing through some other 3D platformers for past episodes of the podcast, I started thinking to myself, because it was actually Conker. It was the Conker episode, Conker's Bad Fur Day. When we were playing that, when I was playing through that for the episode of the podcast focused on Conker, and I had some pretty harsh criticism about the overall movement of that game, the gameplay, the movement, the controls. I had some criticism about it, and I thought to myself, oh, geez, is this the way 3D platforming was back then? Because I have a different recollection entirely. When I was younger, I loved Conker's Bad Fur Day. I loved Banjo-Kazooie. I loved Super Mario 64. Admittedly, I hadn't played a lot of those games more recently. Conker was one of the first I was playing from a more modern perspective, probably within the last 20, 25 years. So, as I was, actually it would have to be 20 years because Conker didn't come out until around the year 2000-ish. So, within the last 20-ish years, I hadn't really played a ton of those older school 3D platforming experiences. And I started thinking to myself, if I remember loving Conker, and right now as I'm playing it, I'm really not loving Conquer. Is this an indicator that my memories and my nostalgia is incorrect for some of these other 3D platforming games? So I did fire up Super Mario 64 just to test my theory, to see if I was truly wearing nostalgia goggles for these older experiences, or if perhaps Conquer was just not as good as Super Mario 64, because I've always considered Super Mario 64 to be the pinnacle of 3D platforming from around that time. So I fired up the game, I got into Super Mario 64, and I started playing around with it, and I realized, nope, Super Mario 64 is just an amazing game. It doesn't matter. Conquer just kind of missed the mark for some reason, and I don't know how that happened, but Super Mario 64 stands the test of time. We will have an episode on that because I want to play through it again. I want to re-experience that game. I want to get all 120 stars. I want to devour that game. We will get a future episode on that one at some point. I am excited. Hopefully everybody else is excited about that declaration. I don't know when it's going to be, but we will have a future episode on it. Regardless, thank you, Kevin, for your submission, and I apologize for rambling so much about my own stuff with Super Mario 64, but you definitely hit upon something when you submitted that one. Anyway, we're going to move on to our next song submission, which is That was the Twisted theme from Twisted Metal for the PlayStation 1, submitted by Mike, who writes, "How can you not like Twisted Metal? Out of all my PS1 games, this is probably the series that got the most playtime over the years. I had never played a driving game where the main focus was destroying your opponents, and as a teenager of the 90s, I thought this was the coolest thing ever. While future Twisted Metal games would be more refined than the first, with Twisted Metal 2 being a favorite, the original title is the game that started it all, and it still freely resides in my long-term memory banks, and it probably always will." Thank you, Mike, for your submission. Twisted Metal. We got to talk about Twisted Metal, because that is a series that I have played. Well, I guess if I'm thinking about my personal experience with Twisted Metal, I really only played the first two to any great capacity. The first one I played a bit. The second one, Twisted Metal 2, oh, I loved playing Twisted Metal 2. Who was the guy with the big wheels? Was that Axel? Was that his name? The guy that rode around, he has his arms attached to like these monster truck wheels. That was my guy. I played that game incessantly when it came out. I thought it was the coolest thing. I was also a teenager of the 90s. I thought it was the coolest thing, riding around and shooting other cars and opponents and making them try to blow up. I thought it was just super cool. Now, I did have a little bit more experience from other similar kinds of games. I had played, I believe, and I hope I'm not mixing up the timelines here, but I had played a little bit of Carmageddon on the computer. I also played, what was it Quarantine? Now I'm not remembering the exact name. What was the game on the computer where you drive around. I think it was Quarantine was another similar kind of game where you're driving around and you can kind of, I think you can shoot other cars or pedestrians or just people on the street or whatever. I'm almost positive that's Quarantine. Geez. I'm not 100% sure, but hopefully you all know what I'm talking about. There were a few computer games, computer-based vehicular combat games that were very prevalent around the early to mid 90s. So I played those, and I also played Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal 2 being the one that I also focused on because Twisted Metal 2 was just awesome. There were some nice revisions to the overall gameplay that came with Twisted Metal 2 that I thought just made it feel like a much better experience. Plus, you had Axel, because I don't believe Axel was in the original game. I know that the big guy from the original game was Sweet Tooth, right? Sweet Tooth is like the iconic Twisted Metal character, the ice cream truck. What is he, an insane clown kind of person? Oh, now I'm showing my age because I haven't played a Twisted Metal game in forever. So now I'm going purely off of memory right now. I have not touched Twisted Metal literally within a year of when it came out. So I am going totally off of memory with this one. So I apologize if I get some of the details wrong. But Twisted Metal was just a cool game. And similar to Super Mario 64, the 3D environments within Twisted Metal from a driving perspective, especially on a home console and a television screen, it felt totally different. There was another game that came out, I want to say it came out around the same time, that I thought was absolutely insane, which I'm going off on a tangent and I apologize. But Destruction Derby. Does anybody remember Destruction Derby on the PlayStation 1, where literally you would be driving these cars around and your goal was to simply destroy the other cars, not because you had guns and stuff like that, but just by ramming other cars. I remember that game being pretty darn frustrating, but I also really enjoyed the different models that the cars would go through with the various damage that they would take. I thought that was a really cool game. That era of PS1 gaming was very interesting and intriguing to me. You kind of look at the PS1 and the N64, they ushered in two different styles of similar game experiences. The N64 was very super smooth, texture filtered kind of stuff with real 3D worlds, and the PlayStation was kind of the evolution of what you might have seen on more traditional 2D consoles. They didn't have all of that smooth texture mapped shaded kind of stuff, but they did have really cool gameplay experiences. They did explore 3D environments. They had edgier kind of graphics than what you would ever have seen before. Twisted Metal is definitely one of those series that helped usher in that era of gaming, especially with the edgier kind of content. And I can definitely say Twisted Metal, the series, an important release in gaming history. I kind of am curious about what more modern releases. I think, are there modern releases for Twisted Metal? I know there are definitely ones that came beyond the PS1, but I'm trying to think if are there any real modern Twisted Metals? That's something to explore. Maybe after this episode, after I stop recording, I may take a look and see what other Twisted Metals are out there. Regardless, thank you, Mike, for your submission. You, similarly to some of the other submissions, have jogged a memory in my head and made me go off and just start talking about stuff. But thank you, Mike, for your submission. We're going to move on to our next song on the list, which is...
Here we go. So the finally here. Performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you want to clap as we take you through this monkey rap. He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail. His coconut gun
The DK Rap from Donkey Kong 64, which was submitted by Ray, who writes, "Who doesn't love the DK Rap from Donkey Kong 64? I know some people feel like DK64 is too much of a collectathon, but I don't care. I loved everything about the game, and I remember spending hours upon hours exploring every nook and cranny, trying to collect every single item that I could. I marked out so hard when I heard the DK Rap playing in the Super Mario movie that I felt like other people in the theater might have thought I had something wrong with me. No, I am actually quite sane. Mostly. It's just that I really love Donkey Kong 64, and the DK Rap is an all-time classic video game song." Thank you, Ray, for your submission. The DK Rap, definitely an iconic piece of music. I played Donkey Kong 64 back when it came out. I had the yellow cartridge. I'm not sure if it ever released on a normal cartridge, but I remember having the banana yellow DK64 cartridge. And it was one of those games where this is post Super Mario 64. And I wanted to play more 3D platforming kinds of experiences. So DK64, Donkey Kong 64, was definitely up my alley. I will say that I never truly spent enough time to beat the game, and I certainly didn't go through all of the collectathon kind of stuff to collect everything in the game. Donkey Kong 64 is kind of ludicrous for anybody who doesn't know, and Ray alludes to it in his note. But for anybody who doesn't know, Donkey Kong 64 has a bit of a reputation for being a very collectible heavy game, and not always in the best possible way. Because when you have a game, look at a game that has general collectibles in it. They're there just for the sake of people collecting stuff and potentially getting an achievement nowadays, or just simply uncovering all of the game's secrets, or sometimes you collect a bunch of stuff and then you unlock a secret ending or whatever. So collectibles in games are something I actually enjoy. I enjoy the concept of being able to collect these new hidden secrets and prolong the overall playtime in a game because you're exploring all over the place finding brand new secrets. Well, Donkey Kong 64, and I will admit, like I said, I didn't play a ton of Donkey Kong 64, but Donkey Kong 64 has multiple characters that you can control, and each of those characters have different collectibles, if I remember correctly, which basically means if you were trying to 100% that game, you would have to play through and play with all of these different characters, collecting a bunch of different stuff, and the way to switch between characters is anything but streamlined. Let's just say it is not a streamlined experience. This is an example of a really, really, really big game that's kind of probably a little bit too big because you just have too much. So sometimes too much is not good. That's exactly what Donkey Kong 64 has kind of going for it, or I guess against it, I should say, because Donkey Kong 64 is widely considered to be just too much. Too many collectibles, especially if somebody is trying to get 100% completion. It's just way, way too big, and without enough diversity in the gameplay and without enough really driving force to make you want to collect all that stuff to make it be a longer staying kind of power. That's my understanding of it. Like I said, I didn't play it long enough to form that opinion myself, but that is the commonly held belief across the majority of the video game playing population, at least those who have played Donkey Kong 64, and certainly people that have 100%ed it. A lot of people feel that it's just a little bit too much, a little bit cumbersome to go through that collectible kind of experience. Regardless, the DK Rap. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like the DK Rap? Who doesn't like that song? And I will admit, when I heard that song play, because I went to see the Super Mario Bros. Movie, when I heard that song play and Donkey Kong came out, it's like, DK, Donkey Kong. Like, you can't help but like move around with the beat. It's infectious. It's an infectious song. So I absolutely enjoy that song as well. I really did enjoy its inclusion in the Super Mario movie. And of course, its origin in Donkey Kong 64 definitely warrants a mention. So thank you, Ray, for your submission. Our next song is...
me. I am the great mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you. A huge supply of tish comes from my chocolate starfish. How about some scat, you little twat? Yeah. Ho, 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 ho. Ah. Ha, 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 ha. Hurrah! Hee, 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 hee. Ah. Do you really think you'll survive in here? You don't seem to know which creek you're in. Sweet corn is the only thing that makes it through my rear. How do you think I keep this lovely grin? Have some more caviar. Ah. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah. Ho, 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 ho. Hurrah. Hee, 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 hee. Ah. Ah. Now I'm really getting rather mad. You're like a niggly, tickly, shitty little tag nut. When I've knocked you out with all my bab, I'm going to take your head and ram it up my butt.
Your butt.
My butt.
Your butt.
That's right, my butt.
Ugh.
My butt. My butt. Hurrah. Hee, 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 hee. Hurrah. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah. Ho, 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 ho. Hurrah. Hee, 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 hee. Cursed squirrel, look what you've done. I'm flushing. Oh, what a world, what a world. Who'd have thought a good little squirrel like you could destroy my beautiful clagginess? Oh, I'm going. Oh, no.
Now that's what I call a bowel movement.
That was The Great Mighty Pooh from Conker's Bad Fur Day, submitted by Ricky. Ricky posted this song over in Discord without any comment. I believe he thought that I was not going to actually include this song in today's episode because who would include a song about a great mighty Pooh in this otherwise high-class podcast? I mean, you get it. We're classy. You could almost say we're classic. You get it? Kind of. Anyway, yes, Great Mighty Pooh. song submitted, no comment, just like put it out there. It's like, Tony's not going to do that, right? No, Tony will. Tony will include that song because Tony likes that song a lot. Tony actually really likes that song because it's probably my favorite song from Conker's Bad Fur Day. No, it is. It is my favorite song from Conker's Bad Fur Day. And I believe we talked about this when we had our episode on Conker's Bad Fur Day. The Great Mighty Pooh shouldn't be as good as it is. It is this, as you just heard, this is an operatic piece of poop that's singing as you're attempting to battle it and throw toilet paper into its mouth, because that's what you do, I guess, with poo is you throw the toilet paper at it and you defeat it. I don't know a highbrow way to talk about this song, to be honest with you. I'm trying. How can I talk about this without having the conversation devolve into something else? Maybe I'll just go with it, because the Great Mighty Pooh has a degree of musicality with it that you would not expect when listening to a song emanating from the mouth of a piece of shit. You just would not expect it. I didn't expect it. When I played Conker's Bad Fur Day when I was younger, and this appeared as and everything's going, and then and you knew it was going to be an operatic kind of thing. I started laughing. I was like, what is this? What could this how is this even real life at this point? Oh, it is real life. And it is the Great Mighty Pooh. I love this song so much that back when I was younger, I taught myself to play it on the piano, and I still know how to play it on the piano. If you put a piano in front of me right now, I can belt this one out. No issue. That's how much I enjoyed this song. So, Ricky, you may have been trying to troll me, but the joke's on you, my friend, because the Great Mighty Pooh definitely holds a special place in my heart. We're going to move on to our next song on the list, which is That was Arrival in Naju Empty Room from the Guardian Legend for the NES and was submitted by Sneaky Pete. Sneaky Pete did record a message for all of us to listen to about why he chose this song. So, Sneaky Pete, take it away.
If someone is reading this, I must have failed. This star, Naju, was our home, but we were invaded by evil life forms. Everyone except me was killed. I'm going to try to activate the self-destruct device. If I fail, I would like you to do this task, so this cannot happen to any other race. The self-destruct mechanism is protected by a safety device, which is located in the underground corridors. Remove each seal and go deep inside Naju. If you destroy all 10 safety devices, the self-destruct sequence will be activated. I don't have much time. I hope this message will not be read by anyone. It will mean that I have failed. I still remember the feeling of playing the Guardian Legend for the very first time. The game starts off as a fast-paced vertical shooter, and you're dodging asteroids and blasting everything you can while this upbeat opening track is playing. Then, you run into your first boss, and it's this hectic bullet hell, but you beat it, and then everything shifts. The next scene opens up in a room, and you've changed from a spaceship into this vaguely female humanoid form. And this message is displayed on the screen, and the song starts playing. Even as a kid, this hit me deep and stuck with me. Think back to the early years of the NES. By 1989, we already had a library of games like Contra and Mega Man, Castlevania, Legend of Zelda. These were classics, but they were all still very much games. Whether you're defeating Dracula or rescuing a princess, it mostly felt like a kid's story. Good fights evil, hero wins, hope prevails. But that's not what you get with the Guardian Legend. You're reading this message from someone or something you don't know and will never meet. They left their message not knowing if it would ever be read. And then they died, alone. Evil came and they lost. And now you realize your mission is not to save this entity. It's not even to save this planet star thing. Evil already won, and it's too late to save any of them. Your mission isn't to redeem Naju. Your mission is to destroy it so evil can't come to Earth and win again. I mean, that is heavy. It's like someone said, let's take these mature, complex, unsettling themes and use them as the backdrop for some 8-year-olds to blast things in space. So, back to the song. I think it punches way above its weight class. It's got this sense of gravitas and melancholy, and it's driving, but it's also a bit haunting. I don't know. I think it reminds me of that melody that plays at the end of Terminator 2. You know, when you think they've finally won, but Arnold still has to destroy himself to keep everyone safe. I remember how much these songs affected me way before I was old enough to really grasp how heavy the ideas behind them were. So, that's a lot, but that's why I chose this song. The Guardian Legend is one of those games that will always stick with me, and I think it's criminally underappreciated in the NES library. It's not a perfect game, but it is a lot of fun. And if you want to peel back the cover a bit, it's got this whole other thing going on too. Thanks for letting me share it with you.
Thank you, Sneaky Pete, for your message. I've got to say, I will admit, I have never played the Guardian Legend. I've seen it. I have seen it sitting, I actually remember seeing it sitting on store shelves when I was younger. And I thought to myself, it sounds like a cool game. Just forget about what the box would look like or anything like that, because I don't remember what the box looked like. But just the name, the Guardian Legend. I always thought, well, that sounds kind of cool. I mean, I like legends. I can certainly be a Guardian Legend. That sounds right up my alley, but I never actually played the game. I really don't know much about the game at all, other than what Sneaky Pete just relayed to all of us via his message. I have got to say, after hearing that, I kind of want to play the game. Actually, I definitely want to play the game, but it does sound kind of heavy. Wow. I know that there were occasionally these older games that would touch upon mature themes or some heavier kinds of elements beyond just the cartoon-like visuals and the happy-go-lucky music and the stomping on the heads of bad guys to get to the princess in another castle and all that kind of stuff. I know that a lot of games from back around, especially the 8-bit era, were focused more so on those kind of experiences versus giving something that was a little bit more mature themed or had additional mature elements to it and just was deeper, let's say, than what the surface would appear to be. The Guardian Legend sounds like a really interesting game, and I'm kind of curious. I am curious now what that game would actually be like. So I am adding it to our list of potential future episodes. Thank you, Sneaky Pete, for your submission, and definitely thank you for recording your message for all of us to hear. We're going to move to our next song on the list, which is That was Yell Dead Cell from Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance and was submitted by ISO. ISO also recorded a message for all of us to listen to about why he chose Yell Dead Cell for today's episode. So ISO, take it away.
That was or is going to be Yell Dead Cell from Metal Gear Solid 2. Just covering my bases there. I'm not sure if Tony's going to lean into me or lean out of me as I sort of intro this. So, yeah, off to a swimming start already with my intro, as is to be expected from an ISO podcast contribution. So, Metal Gear Solid 2, I came pretty late to the party on. I can't remember if I played it after 3 or not. Metal Gear Solid 3 was like my holy grail of games. I still haven't even finished Metal Gear Solid 1. I played bits of it, but 2 was like my attempt to try and go through the series again after I'd beaten 3. That's starting to sound familiar. So, and this song is pretty catchy and it sort of ticks all of the boxes for me, like the cool saxophone that's running through it, like this jazz fusion. It reminds me a lot of the Naked Lunch soundtrack. If anybody has heard that soundtrack, it's one of my little favourite gems that my dad put me onto. But yeah, this jazz fusion, I think, is probably why I love this song so much. It plays during the Fat Man fight, I believe, which is, for anybody that doesn't know, a big fat guy on roller skates in a bomb suit just throwing TNT around. It's pretty ludicrous, which pretty much sums up Kojima's style, really, doesn't it? Like, you listen to this, you've got like the Bond, James Bond style classical music and the cool dance track in between, mixed in with the jazz fusion. It's really, it shouldn't work if you put it all down on paper, but it really is pretty captivating. So I really like this song. I heard it on like a TikTok reel or something the other day, and I was like, oh, I've completely forgotten about how good this song is. So I thought I'd share it with you guys for the grab bag. Thank you very much if you use this suggestion, Tony. Cheers.
Thank you, ISO, for your message. Of course I'm going to use your suggestion. You're our Final Fantasy X resident Secret Santa person. Why would I? How could I not? How could I not use your suggestion? Metal Gear Solid 2 is a game that I have some experience with myself as well. I remember playing the original Metal Gear Solid on the Sony PlayStation and thinking, this is something special. This was something unlike anything I had played before. And I know that I use that phrase a lot. This is unlike anything you've played before. But the simple fact is, a lot of times when I use that phrase, it's actually true, because Metal Gear Solid was something totally unique. The cinematic quality of it, the stealth action gameplay, everything about that game was amazing. And then you have Metal Gear Solid 2 come out, and it was everything Metal Gear Solid 1 was, but better and polished. And the visuals were so cool. And the music in the game was phenomenal. And there were story twists. And sometimes the story just goes entirely off the rails. I mean, that's kind of a Metal Gear Solid staple, I guess. Or I guess more of a Kojima staple is just stories that are just like, whoo, they're out there. But they work. Somehow they work. Metal Gear Solid 2 is definitely one of those games that I loved playing back when I was younger. I have considered going back to play it again and having an episode in the podcast devoted to Metal Gear Solid 2. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not, because I'm kind of curious about going back there. I know that Metal Gear Solid 3 is already slated to be an episode of the podcast because it's going to be one of our upcoming sponsored episodes, probably a little bit later on, but it is definitely out there on the sponsor list. I'm looking forward to playing that. Now, that is a Metal Gear game that I have not played. And actually, if I think about it, Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, those are the two Metal Gear Solid games that I've actually played to completion. Metal Gear Solid 3, I played a little bit of when it came out, but I didn't really play it all that much. And then Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5, I haven't played at all. I own them. I bought them because they were supposed to be these really awesome experiences, but I just haven't gone back to play them yet. The entire Metal Gear series, I kind of want to do a full playthrough of the mainline Metal Gear Solid games. Maybe do like a ranking episode on them, maybe on the Patreon feed or something. I don't know. I'm kicking around some ideas, but I really want to experience all of Metal Gear. Regardless, that's a conversation for a different day. This song, Yell Dead Cell from Metal Gear Solid 2. Thank you, ISO, for your submission, and certainly thank you for your message. We're going to move to our next song on the list. That one is... That was the On It theme from Earthbound for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and was submitted by I Am the Dizzle, who writes, "So I'm going to go back to the well and pick an Earthbound song. The first overworld theme from On It is just sublime. The song itself at first blush sounds a bit goofy, but like any good overworld theme you hear a lot, it shines the more you listen. There's so many great details, like the aggressive use of stereo panning, the wide variety of instrumentation and voices, and the bass line that restarts the loop. Also memorable is the way the song is presented for the first time, with Ness walking out of the house of his nemesis, the game pausing while the music begins, and the sun rising on your new adventure." Thank you, I Am the Dizzle, otherwise known as Dave, for your submission and your comment. Earthbound is one of those games. We had a full episode on Earthbound, so if you want to know all of my thoughts about Earthbound, definitely check that episode out from our archives. But Earthbound is one goofy game. It is, but it works. It all works together. And the music from Earthbound is actually really, really good. It is not the same kind of epic music that you hear in other JRPG-styled games like the Final Fantasies or the Chrono Triggers of the world. Those are these epic orchestral-sounding soundtracks that just really make you ready to go on an adventure. The music from Earthbound does the same exact thing, but in a different way. You're not going to hear a bunch of horns blasting as strings come in and it's like really epic sounding. It's kind of like, hey, you're going on an adventure. And you know what? It's probably going to be an offbeat adventure. And you know what? That's entirely okay, because Earthbound is one of those games that I did play a bit when I was younger. I think I relayed this story during our Earthbound episode, but if not, if I did, this is a refresher. If not, first time everybody's hearing this. I played Earthbound when I was younger. We would my brother and I would rent the game from our local video game rental store, and we got up to the point of, what is it, the ghost town, I think, or the zombie town, or whatever. My memory is fading a little bit, but we got to that one stage where or that one area where you get the bus and you go into the next stage. And then we kind of I guess we had to return the rental. And sometimes we would re-rent the game over and over and over again to try to beat it. But for whatever reason, we never beat Earthbound back when we were younger. Of course, I rectified that issue when we had our episode on Earthbound, and I recognized just how offbeat, quirky, and awesome Earthbound was and is as a game. And the game's full of really cool musical themes. The On It theme, and honestly, Dave, I couldn't have put it better myself. And the very last line that you wrote, which was, "Also memorable is the way the song is presented for the first time, with Ness walking out of the house of his nemesis, the game pausing while the music begins, and the sun rising on your new adventure." That, my friend, is poetic. And I really appreciated that line. I also appreciated your entire comment. But that line is poetic because it really does encapsulate everything that you're about to experience with Earthbound. So Dave, thank you for your message. Thank you for selecting this theme. And thank you as always for your support. We're going to move on to our final song on the list. This one is... the main theme from Silkworm on the Amiga, which was submitted by Deaky Fun, who writes, "This is a tune that has stuck with me despite having not played the game since I was a child equipped with an Amiga 500. I've just always thought it slaps, in the filthiest way." Thank you, Deaky Fun, for your submission and your comment. And yeah, I will say, and I've admitted this multiple times at this point, the Amiga is a blind spot for me. I need to continue experiencing more Amiga titles because the Amiga was a very powerful system in comparison, or at least I'll say more capable system than a lot of other computer platforms that were available around the same time in history. I feel like I missed a huge opportunity by not having an Amiga when I was younger. I have to rectify this issue. I am going to play more Amiga games because the more I hear the music from them, the more I see the gameplay from them, the more I look at the graphics, the more I look at just how advanced and capable these games were, the more I realize that I kind of missed the boat when I was younger. And I've mentioned before that I didn't even become a traditional PC gamer until a little bit later in the early to mid 90s. I missed a lot. I missed a lot on the computer landscape. I definitely want to dive deeper into the Amiga. I don't have any personal reflections on Silkworm because, like I just said, I have a blind spot to pretty much the entire Amiga library that I need to rectify. But I will say that this song from Silkworm makes me want to play the game. It makes me want to play even more Amiga games. I want to experience everything. I'm the kind of person that just wants to experience everything, and I really appreciate when somebody submits something that I have had no exposure to in the past because it opens up another potential avenue for me to explore. So Deaky Fun, thank you for your submission and your comment. And honestly, beyond that, thank you to everyone, not just the individuals who contributed to this episode, but thank you to the entire community. The fact is, these listener episodes are always amazing because it demonstrates how much music and the games we all collectively love can shape our experiences, forge our memories, and leave an indelible mark upon our personalities. And that, without a shadow of a doubt, is truly Pantheon-worthy. That was our second listener grab bag Sounds of the Classics episode. I hope you all enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed watching you all create it. If you'd like to reach out, let me know how I'm doing, provide feedback, comments, suggestions, or just talk about classic games and technology in general, I would love to hear from you, and there are a few ways you can reach out. I have an X account with the handle @ClassicGamingT. I have an email address, which is classicgamingtoday@gmail.com, and we have our Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Discord is the best way to get in touch with me and the rest of the community around this podcast. We have a ton of fun out on Discord. I highly encourage you all to check it out. I also highly encourage you to check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/ClassicGamingToday. If you want even more Classic Gaming Today goodness, including a Patreon exclusive bi-weekly podcast expansion pack, patreon.com/ClassicGamingToday is where it's at. Before we sign off for the week, I do want to mention that our next episode is going to be our holiday special episode, which is where I release one of our Patreon episodes for everybody to enjoy. The episode that I have chosen this year is our episode on Hollow Knight Silksong. That is going to be our very next episode and is my way of saying happy holidays to all of you. If you want to say happy holidays to me, you could always leave me a review on your podcast service of choice. Oh man, I guess that was a pretty good segue. I'm kind of proud of myself. Anyway, feel free to leave a review on your podcast service of choice. This is not about trying to bolster star counts. This is not about trying to harvest a ton of 5-star ratings, though if that happens, awesome. It means we're doing something right. No, what it's really all about is trying to deliver the best possible podcast I can. The only way to do that is to get feedback from all of you, the listener community, to make sure I'm hitting the mark and delivering the content you all want to listen to. We get new listeners every single day, which is simply amazing. I want to continue to grow this community and continue to make the best possible podcast I can. We'll be back in around a week with our next episode, which is our Patreon special holiday episode focused on Hollow Knight Silksong. Until then, remember, sometimes the games of the past are just as good, if not better, than the games of today. Goodbye, everyone.